With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories.
Federal Cabinet visits Electronic Travel Authorization Unit ahead of launch.
St. Kitts and Nevis deepen relations with Cuba despite ongoing poly-crisis in the Spanish-speaking nation. St. Kitts Junior Minister of Tourism 2025, Mary Shelford, shares initiatives for a more enhanced regional aviation industry. St. Kitts Nevis government bolster prison legislation in almost 70 years.
Public urged to aid in locating missing man Ivel Jr. St. Val. St. Kitts and Nevis embraces CARICOM environmental policy framework and ocean governance mechanism. U.S. ready to help Guyana eliminate criminals. SEDEMA steps up preparedness for Atlantic hurricane season. Internationally, G7 finance ministers meeting in Canada, global economy and Ukraine are on the agenda.
Now, the details.
On Thursday, May 15, 2025, the Federal Cabinet, under the leadership of Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Terence True, toured the Electronic Travel Authorization ETA System Unit to gain an up-close view of the progress made toward implementing the country's new and advanced travel authorization system, which will begin operation next month. The visit followed the recent passage in the National Assembly of the Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Amendment Bill 2025. The legislation lays the legal groundwork for introducing a fully modernized and efficient travel authorization process aligning St. Kitts and Nevis with international benchmarks in immigration and visitor management. At the heart of this initiative is a cutting-edge platform designed and deployed in partnership with Travisory, a leading border security technology provider. Renaud Erminger, CEO and founder of Travisory, detailed the new system's functionality and transformative potential during the Cabinet's visit.
What we have done in this facility is that we have set up what is your API PNR PIU, Passenger Information Unit, or Command and Control Center. And this is a place where immigration agent, custom agent, and police officers will be looking into all the information that has been gathered from airlines and air carriers, but also maritime sectors, and will be gathered from people who submit an ETA. And all this data will be analyzed by artificial intelligence, people will be profiled, and people of interest will be identified for the people in this room to review and assess the risk of certain individual. We are working with the government to put in place this next generation electronic travel authorization, which is a little bit like your KNA travel form on steroid with a lot more power. And the goal is that it will also facilitate greatly the return of people or the people coming back and forth. Like in my case, it was my third time coming to St. Kitts and Nevis last week, and I had to do for the third time in a row the KNA travel form, and each time what is my passport number, the expiration date, and so on, and it's really a bit lengthy. Now St. Kittsian and Nevisian will be able to basically store their information on a mobile app and be able each time they come back to simply answer some custom and health questions. Right. And then the time to apply will be a lot shorter. A traveler will apply, and then they will be reviewed by immigration that will be able to assess the travel authorization of people, and some people will be told, stay at home, we don't want you. The goal is that for people who are approved, that people are basically risk assessed, and immigration officer can focus on the people at risk on arrival. The goal is that we want to eliminate the queues on arrival. So, for example, a traveler will be able to walk into St. Kitts and Nevis by walking through this biometric corridor. Yes.
The ETA system is a high-tech leap forward from the current KNA travel form process. It employs artificial intelligence to analyze incoming passenger information from air and marine travelers. By doing so, the system enhances border security through pre-screening, enabling authorities to focus their attention on individuals flagged as potential risks and allowing low-risk travelers to experience expedited processing upon arrival. Prime Minister Drew expressed his satisfaction with the initiative, emphasizing the government's commitment to seamless and secure travel.
We want people to be able to walk in a secure way, so that travelers can say traveling to St. Kitts and Nevis is very seamless and smooth. So we are very, very pleased with what we see here today. And we look forward to the initial launch on the 26th of May, 2025, and the full launch on the 2nd of June, 2025.
The rollout of the ETA system marks a critical milestone for St. Kitts and Nevis, placing the Federation at the vanguard of travel facilitation and border security within the Caribbean region. By embracing this digital transformation, the country is improving efficiency and traveler experience and reinforcing its reputation as a secure and welcoming destination for visitors worldwide. Travelers will soon enjoy the convenience of using a mobile app to pre-register, shorten wait times, and pass effortlessly through the soon-to-be implemented biometric corridor at the Robert L. Bradshaw International Airport. With the initial launch set for May 26, 2025, and full implementation on June 2, 2025, the government's bold step forward promises to revolutionize the flow of visitors while maintaining rigorous security standards, ensuring that St. Kitts and Nevis remains a leader in innovative, safe border management.
Figuring out how to get food is a fundamental daily concern for residents of Cuba who continue to endure years of polycrisis. However, for St. Kitts and Nevis nationals studying medicine in Cuba, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in collaboration with the Federation's embassy in Havana and the Cuban government, continues to ensure that the students are as comfortable as possible whilst pursuing tertiary studies. On May 20, 2025, care packages were shipped to Cuba for the medical students. The shipment included water, personal hygiene products, dry food, medical supplies, batteries, and other essentials. Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew and Foreign Minister Dr. Denzel Douglas were on site at the National Emergency Management Agency NEMA, where the items had been pooled for shipment. National policies, together with the barriers caused by the United States sanctions, among other things, put Cuba in an extremely complex situation. What is most bizarre about the Cuban polycrisis is that people are barely surviving there due to high levels of inflation that have cut into the purchasing power of many households. Food scarcity increased the costs of essential goods such as food and pharmaceutical drugs, and the disintegration of services including electricity, water, public transport, solid waste management, infrastructural development, and other critical services. A shipment of essential supplies for the St. Kitts and Nevis students in Cuba precedes an official visit to the country by a St. Kitts and Nevis delegation under the leadership of Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew from May 22 to May 23, 2025. The high-level engagement will focus on deepening bilateral relations and strengthening cooperation in education and health. Notably, Dr. Drew studied medicine in Cuba in 1998 at the age of 19 and soon became the first Cuban-trained medical practitioner to serve as the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. May 10, 2025 marked 30 years since St. Kitts and Nevis established diplomatic relations with the Republic of Cuba. Since then, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis has benefited from the partnership through medical training, academic scholarships, and healthcare services. St. Kitts and Nevis, too, has been in consistent solidarity and support against the United States blockade on Cuba, among other struggles such as the thrust to bombard the medical international collaboration between Cuba and other diplomatic partners. Delivering remarks at a 30-year diplomatic relationship celebratory event on May 12, 2025, Hollis Prentice, a representative of the local alumni association, spoke about the diplomatic relationship with Cuba and St. Kitts and Nevis and emphasized how Cuba continues to be a vital partner to other nations in times of disaster and crisis. At the 30th anniversary event, the Cuban ambassador to St. Kitts and Nevis, Mr. David Rivero, shared that St. Kitts and Nevis and Cuba expanded their cooperation to include infrastructural development. He announced that Cuban engineers and architects had been offering technical assistance in construction and the management and execution of related projects in St. Kitts for about 6 months before the 30th anniversary. The 30-year milestone signifies Cuba's commitment to the national development of St. Kitts and Nevis. One of the biggest barriers to intra-regional travel is the high ticket cost, a concern raised by countless regional travelers. Mary Shelford, the 2025-2026 Junior Minister of Tourism St. Kitts, discussed the key focal points to enhance the travel experiences to the region in her argument at the 2025 Youth Congress. Shelford anticipated a future with a cleaner, greener air transport system. Notably, in recent years, there has been an evident shift towards sustainability in the aviation industry, particularly particularly driven by the growing awareness of its environmental impacts and the critical importance of addressing the climate crisis. Shelford identified a range of initiatives to ensure a sustainable and green aviation industry in the region.
First, we must adopt sustainable aviation and green infrastructure. Electric, hydrogen, and biofuel aircrafts can reduce carbon emissions and operating costs. Tax incentives for airlines using green technologies would support this shift, thus making flights more affordable for all. Traditional aircrafts and many outdated regional airports pollute heavily, harming our ecosystems, leading to high operational costs and contributing to health challenges. But with investment in sustainable aviation fuel, regional airlines can lead in eco-friendly innovation. Our airports must evolve too, taking inspiration from right here in St. Kitts Solar Panel Farm. Airports across the region should adopt solar power, water recycling, and energy-efficient systems to reduce environmental impact.
Advancements in smart technology continue to reshape the way people experience travel and the decisions that airlines make. In her presentation, the St. Kitts Junior Minister of Tourism shared an idea to ensure a more seamless and hassle-free experience for travelers.
Next, we must use technology for smarter travel. A regional app with the use of blockchain could make booking, paying, and checking flight schedules much easier and more secure. Smart systems such as Honeywell Forge use artificial intelligence to help planes use less fuel by choosing better routes. Sensors on aircrafts can spot problems easily, reducing delays, hence making travel simpler, faster, and more reliable for everyone.
Sustainable tourism links to sustainable economic growth. Shelford said more needs to be done to empower people and ensure that environmental and social impacts are considered to bolster regional economies.
Most importantly, we must empower our people. Green aviation training and smart airport management prepares the next generation of regional leaders. Green infrastructure creates local jobs, strengthens search and maintenance sectors, and attracts global investment. With tourism expected to contribute nearly $59 billion to regional GDP by 2028, a sustainable air transport system will be essential to long-term economic success.
The junior minister argued that change is worthwhile to ensure a more connected Caribbean region. The Prison Amendment Act 2025 was passed in the St. Kitts and Nevis National Assembly on Thursday, May 15, heralding a new day and a new way to address major concerns relating to the country's correctional facilities. There has been much concern in recent years, particularly about contrabands being smuggled into His Majesty's prison in Bastille. During a prison raid in July 2024, a wide variety of contraband was found, including mobile phones, SIM cards, chargers, drugs, scissors, sponge, among other things. There were also reports of persons attempting to throw contraband over the prison walls. As a result of the smuggling of contraband into the prison, the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force also made several arrests of persons who were found in breach of the law, including a few prison officers. The Prison Act, originally enacted in 1956, almost 70 years ago, became outdated in some areas, hence the need for proactive law revision. The amendments to the Prison Act highlighted increased penalties for the smuggling and possession of contraband in prison and strengthened security in prison by expanding the list of prohibited contraband to include pharmaceutical drugs, mobile phones, SIM cards, and weapons. Mover of the bill, Prime Minister and Minister responsible for national security, Dr. Terence Drew, outlined the provision of the amendment and shared what the country is seeking to achieve with the changes.
So this bill makes three big changes, Madam Speaker. One, it increases the fine for smuggling from $1,000 to $50,000. We are serious about this, Madam Speaker. It increases the possible prison sentence from 6 months to 10 years in prison, Madam Speaker. And it broadens the list of banned items to include mobile phones. Back then when this law was put in place, which is so long ago, we didn't have no mobile phones. We have mobile phones now. SIM cards, they didn't exist then. And the obvious ones like knives, drugs, and other items that have become common in criminal networks. These changes will make our prisons safer, and they will help to stop any nefarious activities behind bars. The only activities we want behind bars, Madam Speaker, are activities of rehabilitation, and then that would, of course, increase your possibility of a successful reintegration into our society.
Attorney General and Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs, Senator Garth Wilkin, welcomed the amended legislation. He believed that the time had come to tighten up the penalties, deter organized crime originating within the prison, protect prisoners and prison officers, and ensure public safety. A more impactful piece of Wilkin's argument highlighted that a breakdown or gaps within the prison system and its linkage to organized crime is a cross-cutting threat to sustainable development, including the ability to obstruct economic development and legitimate commerce and investment arrangements.
Madam Speaker, our current stability, marked by the notable reduction in violent and gang-related crime, must be defended vigilantly. The moment we permit laxity in our prison management, we invite chaos back into our streets. The Sustainable Island State agenda makes it clear that we cannot grow as a nation unless we are secure. Law and order is the foundation of development. No investor wants to bring money into the country where crime is out of control. No parent wants to raise children in fear. This is why crime reduction is not just a security issue, it's also an economic issue, a public health issue, and a development issue. That is why the bill matters, Madam Speaker. It fits directly into our overall plan to reduce crime, protect families, and create a peaceful future. When we close the gaps in our prison laws, we help stop criminal networks from operating in the shadows, we protect the public, support our security officers, and keep control where it belongs, in the hands of law-abiding citizens.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister said persons seeking to violate prison rules and regulations from behind bars and individuals attempting to aid prisoners in any illicit form should not be allowed to continue in that vein. He clearly warned that the newly introduced penalties will be meted out to lawbreakers.
The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force is urgently calling on the community's assistance in the search for Ivel Jr. St. Val, a 27-year-old Haitian national currently residing in St. Kitts. Authorities appeal to anyone who may have seen him or has information that could help locate him to come forward without delay. Val, a dark-skinned male approximately 6 feet 3 inches tall with a slim-build, brown eyes and closely cropped black hair, was last seen on May 18, 2025 at around 3:30 p.m. He attended a party at Basla's Bar in Trafalgar Village, Bastyr, St. Kitts. He was last seen wearing long blue jeans and a black baseball jersey. The police have reiterated the importance of community support in such investigations, emphasizing that sometimes just one person can make the difference in bringing someone safely home. They encourage everyone to be that person, to reach out and share any information that may assist the search by contacting the nearest police station immediately. The authorities assure the public that all information provided will be treated with the utmost confidentiality, respecting the privacy and safety of those who come forward to help. Senator the Honourable Dr. Joyle Clark, Minister of Sustainable Development, Environment, Climate Action and Constituency Empowerment of St. Kitts and Nevis, has applauded the CARICOM Environmental and Natural Resources Policy Framework as a landmark document offering significant guidance and unity for the region's environmental goals. Dr. Clark highlighted the policy framework's crucial role in tying national efforts to regional aspirations.
The environmental framework, policy framework presented by CARICOM is so significant because it's directional, it's instructional, and it gives us an overarching guiding framework that allows us to align not just our own policies, and here I reference the Sustainable Island State Agenda that St. Kitts and Nevis has presented as its Vision 2040. It connects our agenda with a broader regional framework. It also allows us to connect our individual projects happening in each ministry, in each department, with what's happening regionally, what the intentions are for us as a unified Caribbean bloc. So we welcome this framework as a guiding principle. It's our Bible of sorts in terms of our environmental ambitions, our climate resilience and sustainability ambitions.
The CARICOM Environmental and Natural Resources Policy Framework provides a blueprint for cooperation among member states, outlining guidelines for the protection, conservation, and sustainable use of the region's critical natural resources. It supports the goals of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas and facilitates the effective operation of the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME. The framework was officially launched at the 118th Special Meeting of the Council for Trade and Economic Development, COTED, on April 30th in Antigua and Barbuda, where ministers focused extensively on environmental governance and sustainable development. Reflecting on St. Kitts and Nevis's recent steps in ocean management, Dr. Clark underscored the nation's commitment to regional collaboration.
In September 2024, St. Kitts and Nevis signed the Ocean Governance and Coordination Mechanism. And for us, it was a significant step coming out of our participation at SIDS-4, recognizing that we can't solve the challenges related to marine resources, ocean use, and governance alone. And therefore, signing along with other Caribbean and CARICOM member states was critical. And for us, it gives us a regional framework to build our own policies, work towards our own legislative agenda to ensure that we're protecting not just our ocean space, but the regional space.
She further elaborated on the importance of ocean space to the Twin Island Federation.
And it's also a recognition that ocean for us is significant. We are largest in terms of our ocean size. And that's why many of our heads of state have been lobbying for us to be considered as large ocean states, which gives more significance to our expanding size as a region and our expanding individual sizes if you consider our ocean territories.
The launch of the framework and discussions at COTED represent a critical moment for CARICOM as it advances environmental policies that align national ambitions with cohesive regional vision. The accompanying ocean governance mechanism responds to the urgent need for collective management of marine resources, an imperative underscored by the growing threats from climate change and environmental degradation. During the meeting, Minister Clark's remarks to the CARICOM Secretariat Communications Unit highlighted the Federation's proactive stance in environmental stewardship and sustainable ocean-based economic development for resilience and long-term prosperity. St. Kitts and Nevis continues to position itself as a leader within the Caribbean community and as a pivotal large ocean state, advocating for greater recognition and stronger partnerships to safeguard the fragile marine ecosystems and resources vital to the Caribbean's sustainable future.
In regional news,
U.S. ready to help Guyana eliminate criminals, News Source Guyana reports.
Declaring that the United States will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with Guyana in its defense of its territorial integrity, U.S. Ambassador to Guyana Nico Therio announced that the U.S. also stands ready to lend assistance to the Guyana Defense Force in eradicating criminal elements from the bordering Cayuny River area.
Maduro's rhetoric is inflammatory and unacceptable. But at the end of the day, it is just bluster aimed at shoring up domestic support. It should not affect Guyana's investment climate or readiness to do business.
The U.S. ambassador made those comments while speaking at the annual general meeting of the Private Sector Commission of Guyana. Just last week, 3 GDF patrols in the Cayuny River near the border with Venezuela came under heavy gunfire from men dressed in civilian clothing on the Venezuelan side of the border. There were no injuries sustained by any of the local soldiers. However, 2 months ago, a similar incident took place and 3 GDF soldiers were injured in the attack then. The U.S. ambassador, during her speech today, reiterated her government's long-standing support of Guyana in the border row with Venezuela and the U.S. government's support of Guyana's case against Venezuela at the International Court of Justice. Turning her attention to Venezuela's planned elections on the 25th of May to select a governor for Guyana's Essequibo region, the U.S. ambassador said those sham elections should be seen for being nothing more than bluster.
Venezuela, of course, has also been in the news recently due to the Sindicato's acts of aggression against the GDF patrolling the Cayuny. These are criminals engaging in criminal activity, and the United States stands ready to support the GDF in its effort to eradicate this activity along Guyana's frontier and to ensure the safety and security of Guyana's people.
The ambassador also said the U.S. is fully supportive of the ICJ's provisional measures, which have called on Venezuela to halt its planned elections for a governor of Guyana's Essequibo region, which it continues to claim.
We fully support the ICJ's provisional measures for Venezuela to halt its so-called elections in the Essequibo on May 25th, and we're extremely unhappy that they made that ill-advised decision to go ahead and move forward. You will be seeing a very strongly worded tweet coming out of the State Department very soon on that issue, and it will make extremely clear to you where the U.S. stands. Everyone should see this sham for what it is. It's saber rattling from the Maduro regime, nothing more. And no amount of bluster or saber rattling changes the fact that the United States will always stand shoulder to shoulder with Guyana in support of its sovereignty and territorial integrity.
The U.S. government has repeatedly made known its full support of Guyana. During a recent visit to Guyana, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio not only reaffirmed the U.S. government's support, but also warned Venezuela against attacking Guyana or any of the ExxonMobil assets within Guyana's waters.
Sedema steps up preparedness for Atlantic hurricane season. DBS St. Lucia has that story.
The latest outlook from Colorado State University predicts another above-average Atlantic hurricane season with an estimated 70 named storms. Of these, 9 are expected to develop into hurricanes, including 4 major hurricanes of Category 3 or higher. In response, Elizabeth Riley, Executive Director of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency Sedema, says the organization is intensifying preparedness efforts ahead of the official start of the season. These actions are informed by critical lessons learned from Hurricane Beryl last year, which broke several records by becoming the earliest Category 5 hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin, and the first to reach that intensity in the month of June.
I always wish to emphasize that notwithstanding the forecast, we have to recognize that it only takes one system to cause significant impacts for the Caribbean. So yes, we've been ramping up our preparedness actions. We learned quite a bit from the experiences of Hurricane Beryl last year, particularly it being the first Category 5 system which occurred so early in an Atlantic Basin hurricane season. So it's really emphasized for us the importance of ensuring that readiness actions are completed before June 1.
Speaking on the sidelines of the 4th Caribbean Ministerial Forum on School Safety, the CDMO official highlighted the continued reliance on schools as emergency shelters, a common practice in the Caribbean due to the limited availability of alternatives. While this approach helps meet immediate shelter needs during disasters, it often disrupts education and puts school infrastructure at risk. To address this challenge, Sedema is actively urging governments to integrate purpose-built emergency shelters into their broader development strategies, particularly through the construction of multipurpose human resource development centers.
Because we want to get children back into school for many reasons, because it assists with the psychosocial adjustment required in the aftermath of the traumatic impact of hazards, but also because children being in school means that parents are also then released to be able to return to early recovery activities, or to return to working opportunities that are available. So there are many reasons why we promote the utilization of other options for shelter, but we fully appreciate that this is going to be a change that is going to be made over time in countries. And I also think that the opportunity of post-disaster, particularly when we've had catastrophic events, it's important that this type of a policy direction is agreed to before we have hazard events, so that we can capitalize on the opportunity of the reconstruction to reconstruct in a way which will allow us to move away from schools as shelters.
On Thursday, May 15th, the National Hurricane Center began issuing its daily tropical weather outlooks for the North Atlantic Basin. These updates identify areas of disturbed weather with the potential for further development. Meanwhile, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, is scheduled to release its official outlook for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season on Thursday, May 22nd. For the DBS News World, Zane Romulus reporting.
We now bring you these international reports.
G7 finance ministers are in Alberta, Canada for a 3-day summit aimed at creating stronger unity among the world's top economies. On the agenda are issues surrounding global trade as well as support for the war in Ukraine. The summit comes amidst heightened economic instability triggered by U.S. tariff policies. Mike Hanna reports from Banff in Canada.
There's a number of subjects being discussed by the finance leaders, particularly about the threats and promises to the global economy. But one matter that is not on the agenda is that of U.S. trade tariffs. This is something that's being talked about on the sidelines. A short while ago, we saw the U.S. Secretary Treasury coming out here talking to the German finance minister. Now, discussions like this are taking place on the sidelines all the time. But there's one prime aim in this G7 finance ministers conference, and that is to get a climate of consensus, to eradicate the differences, the divisions between the G7 members, and come to a point of agreement. They are searching for one holy grail, and that is a joint statement at the end of this finance ministers meeting, which will form the basis of agreement at the summit meeting, which will be taking place in Canada next month. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, Banff, Alberta.
Palestinians in Gaza on the brink of famine are still waiting for food. Gazans were waiting outside a makeshift soup kitchen in Khan Yunis on Wednesday, hoping to receive lunch meals. But they tell Reuters they couldn't get any food at all. Israel says fewer than 100 aid trucks have entered Gaza since Monday, after an 11-week aid freeze was lifted. Israel's blockade on essentials has forced Gazans into a desperate struggle to survive. Its government has been facing mounting pressure to allow more aid to reach Gaza. But Israeli strikes continue to pound the enclave, and Gazans say they've yet to see fresh supplies of essentials.
People come to the soup kitchen from 7 a.m. They don't find anything. As you can see, all of their pots are empty. All of them. All the people of Gaza come here to the soup kitchen. There's no flour, no food, nothing. We want to live. We're hungry. Everyone is making promises. Everyone is making promises. Everyone is making promises aid will enter. There's no aid or anything.
The renewed assault on Gaza since March, following a 2-month ceasefire, has drawn condemnation from countries that have been cautious to criticise Israel. Even Israel's ties with its most important ally, the United States, now appear strained.
We cannot allow the people of Gaza to starve.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, along with leaders of France and Canada, warned of, quote, concrete actions against Israel if it failed to lift aid restrictions. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel was engaged in a, quote, war of civilization over barbarism. He vowed it would, quote, continue to defend itself by just means until total victory.
A former Ukrainian politician was shot dead by unidentified gunmen outside a school in a wealthy suburb of Madrid on Wednesday, Spain's Interior Ministry said. Andrei Portnov was previously a senior aide to pro-Russian former Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych, who was ousted in a 2014 popular uprising. Police received calls at 9:15 a.m. about a man with gunshot wounds on the street outside the American School of Madrid, in a suburb west of the capital, police officials told Reuters. Encarna Fernandez is a spokesperson for the Madrid Emergency Services.
They tried to revive him, but due to the severity of his gunshot injuries, at least 3 gunshot wounds, they were unable to reverse the situation, and he was confirmed dead.
The American school said police were interviewing parents and believed the victim was a father of children at the school, but was waiting for formal identification by the police, according to a letter sent to parents and seen by Reuters. A spokesperson for the school did not reply to a request for comment. Portnov left for Russia in 2014 and faced investigations in Ukraine over accusations of treason and embezzlement. He was targeted with European Union sanctions, although those and the charges were later dropped. Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, there have been several high-profile crimes related to Russia and Ukraine in Spain, which has significant expatriate communities from both countries.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
Federal Cabinet visits Electronic Travel Authorization Unit ahead of launch.
St. Kitts and Nevis deepen relations with Cuba despite ongoing poly-crisis in the Spanish-speaking nation. St. Kitts Junior Minister of Tourism 2025, Mary Shelford, shares initiatives for a more enhanced regional aviation industry. St. Kitts Nevis government bolster prison legislation in almost 70 years.
Public urged to aid in locating missing man Ivel Jr. St. Val. St. Kitts and Nevis embraces CARICOM environmental policy framework and ocean governance mechanism. U.S. ready to help Guyana eliminate criminals. SEDIMA steps up preparedness for Atlantic hurricane season. Internationally, G7 finance ministers meeting in Canada. Global economy and Ukraine are on the agenda.
Thank you for listening.